So, feeling a little gay today. So, I want to talk a little extra gay, maybe. I want to talk a little bit about why I identify as non binary and the journey that I've made to get here. Because I think I'm beginning to realize that it was always a spiritual journey for me. But I do have a little outline. I guess in the beginning, especially when I was a teenager, and I started growing a beard. I started growing this beard at 16, and I had like the full outline of it, and it completely changed the way that everybody viewed me. Because I began looking like an adult early, and I had always had so much interaction with people who were free to express their gender. Gay. I have a gay uncle who, they always used to joke about me being a little, basically like having an egg to crack, almost. But as I began to grow my body too, and I began to, I guess, enter into my male power, not just in terms of my physical strength or anything, but in terms of, the way people see me and the way women see me too. Because, a lot of people and a lot of men oftentimes don't realize this until they get older, I think, which is that men have a very similar seductive quality that women do. It's just based in our power, our strength, our stability, the way it's even similar, like to I would say it's similar to it's a similar function, but it's just like a different look, essentially. And that's for people obviously who are attracted to men. And I obviously have a lot of that naturally. And I've had it even before a time when I really understood that I had it. And that for me, it created a lot of dysphoria because internally, as someone who felt different, when the time came for me to start doing research about what other people said about what it meant to be a man and what it meant to be a woman for them, I began to realize that I didn't really identify with either, especially not the version of manhood that I was given to. And like I have a certain charisma that can be used for ill will. And I think low-key I did that without even realize I was doing it because of my own like internal issues. And everybody does that. It's not that bad. It's just like, this is me talking about like, because I've been going through a lot of stuff with my relationships recently because I think I've been realizing that at the end of my longest relationship, towards the end of it, I had the realization that I was non-binary. I guess it's like I had been sitting in this space of trying to solve this issue that I was feeling spiritually with a physical solution. I've been talking about that a little bit in some of my videos where, there are two worlds. You can't solve spiritual problems with spiritual solutions, you can't solve spiritual problems with physical solutions, and you can't solve physical problems with spiritual solutions. And that's what I was trying to do. For instance, I seriously considered transitioning for a little while. Just because I felt like I could never get away from the beard. I could never get away from... The only way to actually get away from it was through chemical intervention. And that idea was even comforting for me. That's how viscerally I experienced the dysphoria too. Like the patches in my beard, like that's like my hair is supposed to grow in there. I will never not pick at my beard because of this. Honestly, and it was just so isolating, you know, to feel like I knew who I was, and no matter what I did, everyone was always going to see a different version, no matter what I did. And that's not to say that I'm a woman. I would say that my expression of gender is beyond the binary. And I'll explain that, but yeah, it was just dark, it was just heavy all the time, and I spent so much time just depressed because I felt like there was no escaping the reality of my body, my genetics. But I guess somewhere along the line of the end of my longest relationship, I realized, and I didn't realize this like articulate at the time, but looking back, I realized that somewhere deep within me that my problem wasn't a physical problem. My problem wasn't my body, the fact that I had a beard. It was that I wasn't looking at it from a spiritual perspective. And I was trying to solve, I realized that the issue of my dysphoria was not a physical issue, it was a spiritual issue. And of course, that's not the same for everybody. It's just me. But it was like, I have this distinct feeling like my soul has lived here on this earth before many times in every expression of gender. And low key, you can even see it in my fucking astrological natal chart, is I feel so strongly that I came into this world with my inner world already mastered. That I had this deep sense of inner peace. But I guess during this time, at the end of that long relationship, I felt the ache, right? That something was wrong. And I had an intuition that the problem required a different kind of solution than I had been trying to give it. But I couldn't really fully identify the problem yet. But I knew then, when I came out as non-binary, I was like, okay, my essence is genderless. My inner world is beyond it, because but the reason I have this body is to teach me a lesson, right? Like, I began to see, and after I left my relationship, I began to move through and then enter into others. And I'll get to how the relationship's playing, because it's so crucial, but because it's almost like I would enter into relationships, and then the reflection of the man that the women saw in me became who I wanted to be, instead of what is most essential to me. Like the physical reality of having a man's power, of being seen as a man, and realizing that I am beyond it is something that I've done in previous lifetimes. In fact, I have an intuition that there are probably lifetimes where I haven't realized it. Where I was locked into one way. But that's not who I am. Because what's inside of me is flame itself. That's who I am. My pronouns are he, him, they, them. Because the reality of just the fact that I was born in a male body this time around is not something I'm afraid of anymore. It's something that I accept as part of the curriculum. And in that, it instantly switches from this thing that is burdening me to pure fuel for my creative forge. And it's like now, it's like I've been talking about, the male fire and the feminine water within me is now balanced. And it's productive and it's elevating. It changed how I see myself, how I have compassion for other people's gender expression. You know, but that wasn't the end, because I've just recently gone through the end of another relationship, and I've learned something else. I think I've learned a part of why I came to this place with my inner world already mastered. It's almost like mastery itself is the illusion. That there's no fix, there's no final moment when enlightenment occurs. There is just being present in being, and understanding that before I came here, before I came into this man's body, I chose this. I chose this family. I chose this body, this purpose, even the specific timing, because I came here for a reason: to light the flame in others. So it's not like I'm beyond gender because I've escaped it, or I'm better than it. I remember from previous lives and the time between lives, I remember that I was never only my gender. And so I know that this lesson will echo through the next lifetime and all other lifetimes. And now it's like when I'm awake is when I'm dreaming, because this is the dream. This is this beautiful dream that I've chosen to dream every day. But when I go to sleep, I don't dream anymore. And I couldn't even call it blackness, because there's nothing. I just return to the flame when I'm asleep. And I come back to the dream when I'm awake here. But that's beautiful. That to me is the framework. This physical realm, this world of filters and illusions, is a dream that I chose to dream because my soul requires it. Because my family's souls require that I make this journey alongside them. And that's what this mission is, you know? It's crazy to think, like, you know, me being 21, 22, whatever, and then being like, damn, I might not be a man. To end up, that was the first fruit of my spiritual journey, which feels like it's where it's at now, which is that I'm realizing that it doesn't really have an end. That the end goal of the spiritual path is to find quiet wholeness within. And, you know, like, it's like they say in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within. You know, I'm hesitant to use that stuff because I know that turns people off. But it's all the same shit. You know, these mystery schools are all teaching the same thing. You know, like, I'd even wager to say that, like, Jesus and Buddha were the same soul incarnated in two different bodies, who were just, like, doing some shit on this part of the world that needed to be done. Bring these lessons here. You know? And that consciousness, that soul, is Christ. It's the Christos. And it's something that we can all access. Yeah. Anyways, I love you. Talk to you later.